Have you ever walked away from a conversation with your mother feeling drained, tired, fatigued, or bad? Maybe you're questioning whether this is normal or is there a toxic relationship at play?
Welcome to the What's Eating You podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Giorgio, and I'm a clinical psychologist.
Welcome back to the What's Eating You podcast. In today's episode, I'm going to go through the signs that you may have a toxic mother or toxic relationship in your life and what you can start to do about it. Now, this is not about naming, shaming, or blaming. It's around getting clarity so you can make decisions to improve your mental health and well-being. Now, I am recording this on the camera, so it's going to be available on YouTube if you prefer to watch a video version. But if you enjoy the audio versions, then just listen along. Now, if I'm looking down at my computer, it's because I've got my notes here. I haven't quite figured out how people look at the camera full time whilst having their notes in front of them. So excuse me for being an amateur with the podcast. But what do we think of the background? I'm recording on a new level today, which is exciting because my internet is very slow upstairs. So we are recording. Let's begin. Let's break down the word toxic because the word toxic gets thrown around quite a lot, especially on social media. And just because someone has an argument with you, just because someone has a disagreement with you, it doesn't automatically mean they're toxic. The word toxic gets thrown around similar to the word narcissism. So let's actually clarify the difference between normal conflict, which all families have, all mother-daughters, mother-sons, sons and daughters, dads and mums have, and then toxic patterns, which are persistent behaviors that harm your emotional well-being. Because you can have an argument with your mum or your family member and it's all fine. And after a while, yeah, you're hurt and upset, but then you're okay. But then you can have repeated patterns of emotional, draining, upsetting conversations that affect your well-being. Let's go into the statistics. Studies show that ongoing invalidation, manipulation, or criticism from caregivers is linked to increased rates of anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem in adulthood. Wow. So remember, toxicity is a pattern over time, not a once-off argument with your mum. What are the common signs of a toxic mother? And one thing I want to highlight is many people don't become aware of toxic behavior until they're actually an adult. And the reason is because when you become an adult, you have more awareness, you have more insight, you've got more maturity, so you can actually notice your patterns. The second thing is it doesn't mean that it was never there as a child. Often as a child, you don't pick up on these behaviors because you're a kid. You don't know any different. But sometimes it's not until you hear stories from other children or other parents or you see things on social media and you immediately start to think, that sounds like me. That sounds like my mum. Oh my gosh, could my mum have been toxic? So this episode is to help you understand what is it. So common signs you might have a toxic mother. Number one is chronic criticism or comparison. So they are always pointing out your flaws. They're not really recognizing your effort and they might compare you to your cousins. Oh, your cousin's a doctor. Why can't you be a doctor? Or you should really do something with your hair. Or why didn't you do better in the test? It's constant criticism. It's chronic. So chronic means ongoing. And then there's also comparison. And do you know what's wild? The research shows that constant criticism from a parent is a strong predictor of perfectionism and eating disorders in adulthood. Isn't that wild? So if you've had a critically judgmental mother and you struggle with your eating and you have perfectionism, this could make a lot of sense for you. Number two is gaslighting and denial of your reality. So Again, the word gaslighting gets thrown around a lot. Don't gaslight me, you're a gaslighter. All gaslighting means is when someone denies your reality. So, for example, you can say, "Oh, I was really hurt by that comment." And someone can say, "What comment? There was no comment," and deny that it ever happened. But this is another example, is making you feel too sensitive or that your memories are wrong. When you say, "Why didn't you call me back?" "I never called you." "What do you mean?" "You didn't call me back." And then when you show them the evidence, like, "Hey, got a missed call." "Oh, yeah, that wasn't me. That must have been an accident." They will deny that the sky is blue. Number 3 is emotional parentification. Now, parentification means when you are put in a parent role at an inappropriate time in your life. So you're made to listen to your parent, take care of your parent, put them to bed. You were your parents' therapist pretty much. They would talk to you at an inappropriate age about your parents' divorce, about how much they hate your father, about the drinking problems. And it's a really fine line because children are not responsible for adult problems and they're not a sounding board for adult problems. So if you're an adult and you do this, great that you're listening to this podcast, but this is your sign and awareness to stop because your children are not there to listen to your emotional problems. Number 4 is conditional love. Love's not conditional. Affection is withdrawn if you don't meet expectations. So if your mother, only loved you if you got 100 on the test, or if you did something to help her around the house, but you didn't and you got scolded or you got told off, that's a problem. So when you feel the love is only conditional when you do something for them. And number 5 is lack of boundaries. A sign that you have a toxic mother is that they don't respect your privacy. Oh, you don't need your door locked. They come into your room, they call you nonstop, and they guilt trip you. This is a big one. They guilt trip you when you assert independence. So when you say to your mum, like, "I'm going out, I'm doing this and that. Why do you want to leave me? Why do you want to leave me?" Reminds me of my big fat Greek wedding. But they will often guilt trip you rather than support you in becoming an adult. Now we know the signs of a toxic mother. Don't all go yelling at your mothers because we're going to talk about what to do. We're going to talk about the impact this has on your well-being, or the impact this can have on your kids if you're a toxic mother. And if you're watching this and you are a toxic mother, I'm proud of you for being here today.
Do you eat a large amount of food in a short period of time and feel a loss of control? Maybe you make yourself sick after you binge eat. If this is you, you're not alone. I'm a clinical psychologist who went through a 9-year eating disorder, and I know how to get to the other side of food freedom. If you're ready to ditch the dieting mentality, discover food freedom, and find confidence in yourself and your body, click the free eating evaluation call. The link is below.
The impact is emotional, so feelings such as shame, guilt, difficulty trusting yourself, because if you're constantly told you're wrong or you're invalidated, you start to question your own experience and you start to not trust yourself. Behavioral, so you can have patterns of people-pleasing behaviors, perfectionism, or avoiding conflict. This is a big one. You don't have those difficult conversations. You don't stand up for yourself because you're so used to kind of pandering to your mom that you start to do this in other settings, in professional settings, with doctors, with colleagues. Number 3 is relational impact. So we've spoken about emotional impact, behavioral. The third is relational. So you might choose partners who replicate the same dynamics. And this is why people will always say, "Why do I keep attracting emotionally unavailable men? Why do I keep attracting people that make me feel like I'm not worthy?" Because it's familiar. You're repeating the pattern in your family. Even though it's not good for you, it's familiar. And the brain likes what's familiar, even if it's not good for us. And there's actually a questionnaire called the ACE, which stands for the Adverse Childhood Experiences. And basically, this questionnaire is a questionnaire that asks about adverse life experiences. So on a scale of, I don't know the exact scale, but it basically asks if you've experienced particular adverse life events, like a parent divorcing, abuse, trauma, that sort of thing. It shows a link between dysfunctional parenting and higher risk of mental health and physical issues. Now, let's go over what you can do about it, because not all is lost. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have a toxic mother, but I really want a relationship with her, what should I do about it? Then you're going to enjoy these strategies, because here's the thing, the reason it's hard to recognize is because many adults normalize the mother's behavior. That's just how she is. She's just a Greek mom. And these cultural and generational factors also play a role, because you might be like, oh, that's what Asian parents are like. This culture values obedience and family loyalty, which make it even harder to identify toxic families, because you might have cousins with the same culture or nationality being like, yeah, my mom's the same. And the second reason it's hard to recognize is psychological theories. So, attachment research shows that children are wired to protect parent child bonds, even at the cost of their own well being. This can make toxic behaviors invisible until adulthood. And there was such a good series on Netflix called Ginny and Georgia. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. If you're interested in psychology and dynamics and personality disorders and motherhood, it's amazing. The reason I bring this up is because Ginny is a teenager going through a lot of challenges, and her mom has a lot of narcissistic, histrionic, antisocial traits. But the thing is, she's very likable in the series. And the whole movie, Ginny feels this guilt to protect her mother, even though her mother has done some really wrong, bad things. And even the mother will say to her, it's you and me against the world. It's us against the world, reinforcing this pattern or reinforcing this belief that you got to protect each other. It's us against the world. So now that you know the signs, now you know why it's hard to recognize, now you know the impact on your life, what can you do to start to change it? So, number one is awareness. Become aware of how your toxic mother affects you. Does she tell you you're too sensitive? Does she call you 3 times in a row if you don't answer? How does your toxic mother show up in your life, and how does it affect you? So awareness is the first step. If you recognize that she says things to you that make you upset, your feelings don't matter, you're too sensitive, why are you being dramatic? Your feelings do matter. And self-validation is a big part of this journey. Self-affirmation, reassurance. You pretty much have to reparent yourself by telling yourself that your feelings matter and your feelings are important. The second thing you hear a lot is boundaries. Boundaries are boundaries. And people will say to me, but my mom doesn't respect my boundaries. Start small. Limit time on calls if they leave you feeling drained. When you speak to mom, say, hey mom, really happy to talk, but I've got a meeting at 12 o'clock, so I can only stay here for a little bit. If the conversation starts to escalate or get out of control, I'll call you back. Mom, I don't want to talk about this. We're going around in circles. This is not helpful. So close the conversation if it starts to affect your well-being. 3, which I already spoke about, is self-validation. You have to practice reparenting yourself. You need to tell yourself, my feelings are real. I don't need permission to acknowledge them. I don't need my mom to acknowledge my feelings to make them real, because she's never going to acknowledge my feelings. And you have to give yourself what your mother doesn't give you, whether that's support, kindness, comfort, validation. And I know this is tricky, but you have to do it. And the last thing is support groups. You might find it useful to connect with someone or do some sort of schema therapy or internal family systems therapy. These are really good at healing parental wounds, but you can start the journey yourself. You can start to reparent yourself by asking yourself, What do I need? And give yourself the unconditional love that you did not get from your mum. So, as I close this episode, I really want you to think about a pattern with your mum that always leaves you feeling unheard, invalidated, or small. Is that pattern worth protecting, or is it worth challenging? And recognize that toxicity in your family, it's not about blaming or shaming. It's about reclaiming your power and choosing how you will protect your own well-being. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, please let me know. And thank you for asking me this question on TikTok. Leave a review, leave a rating, and I will see you in the next episode.
Did you know by taking 2 seconds to leave a rating or a review, you help me get the podcast out to more listeners just like you who could really benefit from the information? I appreciate all your support and thank you for tuning in.